Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, like I'm new here, you might want to subscribe. That's the right thing to do, I think. So the past few weeks, my daughter and I have been riding to work together because she's interning with me. And in the course of our discussion, I realized that she lives in a different world, a world that is completely different from the one I live in, or rather from the one I grew up in. And it got me thinking, like, am I raising this child wrong? Have I gone soft? And she's been asking me a lot of questions. How did you start this? When did you do this? When did you do that? And then I realized that I'm beginning to forget the details of how we came to this point. So I decided to put a video together that explains, at least to an extent, the journey from when we started as a brand to where we are today and where we hope to be. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'd remember about 2 weeks ago where I went on a very long rant about how I've had to work for everything I've had and how we built everything from scratch. So let's just say a more detailed version of from scratch. Because if you look at my life today and the things that I do now, you probably might assume that it's always been like this, but it's not always been like this. This will be my gift to anybody anywhere with a dream. I can tell you don't give up, you probably won't believe it. I can tell you it will get better, you probably won't believe it. But I feel like if I take you back, it might serve as encouragement for you that, okay, if this guy can go through all of this and still be here, then maybe there's hope for me. At least that's what I hope to inspire in you though. So the day after Christmas, I took my daughter in the car and we drove all the way to Lasu and where we used to live before in Iba Estate. Sit back, relax, enjoy. Because it's important, those are things that make you human.
How's my way I ride person?
It's my old car.
No, the old one.
The old one, yeah. Anyway, I'm taking you back in time. What?
This is my thing.
Yeah, but I'm taking you back in time though. 5 to 10 years minimum. That road is bad. Let me just pass it.
The Bemo house we're living upstairs.
Yeah, well, we always just live on the top floor. Even in the Bemo, we're living on the topmost floor. So that means you don't even remember this road. Do you remember that house?
Yes, I remember. And there was a that I did there on that. So anytime we're going, it's like going to Spa, but it's easier.
Easier, yeah. So this was our old house.
Yeah, we live on that time.
We lived on the top floor. You remember, Abby?
Yeah.
Do you remember that in this house we didn't have any AC? No, we didn't have any AC. I'm telling you, I'm reminding you. We didn't have any AC in this house. There was no air conditioner. The only thing we slept with every night was what? Fan. And now your brother wakes up to say what?
I can't sleep. It's a flight.
And even you say, you come and say, Daddy, come and put on the tent. I can't sleep. There's no AC.
I said I don't like.
You've said it more than you said
I
it.
sleep with light. I like
Avisha,
light.
no, you've told me 1,000,001 times. Daddy, please go and put on the tent. There's no AC.
That
The room
was
is hot.
2022.
No, you said it. Yeah, well, 2020 was yesterday. I believe before yesterday.
Yes, I didn't say anything for yesterday.
Yes, but I'm just saying that there was a time in your life, just 5 years ago, you knew nothing
Lasso
of this.
and your aliens.
Lasso and the early years. Early years, I was born in Surulere. I'm the second of 4 kids. All my life, I've always known I was always going to work in fashion. I've always wanted to work in fashion because it looked pretty amazing. It looked like an amazing job to have, to call yourself a fashion designer. Like, I never really thought that it was that much work. So I believed that all you had to do was just design stuff and give it to people. They'll stitch it together. And then you do fashion shows around the world and people clap for you. You walk down the runway. That's what I thought back then. But, well, it turns out it's a pretty different ballgame. Growing up, I was a pretty brilliant kid. Yeah, I was quite brilliant. I would be one of those A1 students in school, but I never really used to read, but I would always just excel. Like, if I go to class and I listen to the lecturer or the teacher 90% or 95%, I was that kid. All I wanted to do was just draw, sketch clothes, and design clothes. At a very early age, I would buy my clothes and alter them because I felt like they weren't perfect. So I've always wanted to work in fashion, and then I wanted to go to London College of Fashion, but that didn't work out. My dad said that, but my dad traveled and said when he comes back, he would pay for me to go to London College of Fashion. So I was waiting for him to come back, pay, so I would go to London to go and study, but never happened. And so I went to Lasso. When I was in Lasso, I was passing time as far as I was concerned because I knew I was going to end up in London to study fashion and I'll be a big time designer. So Lasso for me was just, okay, just go and chill there till Daddy comes. But Daddy never came back. Daddy died. That was like a devastating blow. But after I was done with my 4-year course in Lasso philosophy, I decided to enroll in a tailoring workshop, sign up as an apprentice. Yeah, I went to sign up as a tailoring apprentice because I realized that, okay, you know what? I can't work. And I know the kind of human being that I am, that if I get a 9 to 5 job, that was going to be the end of my fashion dream, because just like everybody else, I'm quite lazy. I don't want to stress myself at Agbara bus stop. Alaji J Kappa, that was my guy's name. And they all used to laugh at me back then that, look at this one, you go university, you now came back, come and learn tailoring. Because everybody that was working with them, they were either in primary school or they were not educated. My guy's son, Kazim, took a liking to me, so he used to show me stuff that he wasn't supposed to show me yet. Because by like I think I spent 3 weeks there. By the third week I was gone. I didn't have to go back there again, because I had learned what I wanted to learn. I had learned how to cut a shirt. I learned how to cut trousers. I had already had tailoring experience, because where I was living then, Kunle's house in Agbara Estate, his mom had a sewing machine, and I'd been practicing on the sewing machine for like an entire year. So I knew how to stitch clothes together, but I didn't know how to cut it. I would sew pillowcases. I could sew stuff, but I didn't know how to cut anything. Basically, that's why I went to Alaji Jekapa's shop to learn how to cut clothes properly. And there was one of Kunle's cousins. She was studying clothing and textile in Yabatech at that point. She would come to the house, she'd show me one or two stuff, and then she'd be off. When I started working on the sewing machine, I knew that this is not my destiny. If I miss this one, you don't finish. Lasso. I studied philosophy in Lasso. I studied philosophy because I didn't really think that I was going to graduate in Lasso. I was going to go to London to study fashion. So philosophy was the easiest course to get into. I got into that. I wasn't really serious with philosophy. I used to go to class just to fulfill all righteousness. I think it was my second year. Yes, it was my second year in the university. Kunle Fadigwe, my best friend at that time, he had an accident. He went to a party, he dropped me off at home. Then he was driving back to Agbara Estate with his cousin. So he had an accident on the road, and he broke his leg in like 2 different places, if I remember properly. And he was hospitalized for the entire semester, almost a year. I was always with him in the hospital, and that's how I missed an entire semester of school. So I had an extra year, and my extra year was in the second semester. So that's why I went to Agbara Estate to go and learn tailoring, because I had an entire year to wait. After I had graduated, I had an entire semester that I was missing. So I met up in my final year, right? Yes, I met her in my final year, and we started dating. I mean, I was a cool kid, and everybody loved me, actually. But I think, in the final year, Mom bought a car. All of a sudden, this girl I was dating now had a car, and we could go anywhere. While I was waiting for the second semester to start, I had an entire semester to wait. So that's why I went to learn tailoring. And I was just sewing clothes on my own. I would go to Yaba Market, buy the fabric for like $350 or 400. I would go home, I would stitch it together, make a shirt. And then one day, I went to school in one of the clothes that I made. And a friend of mine, Olumide Oma Williams, he looked at me and he was like, I like this shirt where you wear. I was like, oh, really? Yeah, I made it. So I was like, why you lie? I was like, no, I made it. And he was quite impressed. And then he asked me, how much would you sell it? And I said 2.5, because that was the first figure that came to my mind. And he said, okay, no problem. And he counted 2.5 and gave me. I was like, somebody's actually paying for this crap. And I gave him the shirt. Yes, I gave him the shirt. He gave me the shirt he was wearing, and he gave me the money. I crossed the road. I took a coastal bus to Yaba Market. I had 2,500 in my pocket now. So I bought 4 fabric, 2K, and I came back home with $500 or less, because the transportation was very cheap back then. So I went back home. I made 4 new shirts, and I wore them to school. Femi Badamo said he wanted one. All my friends started buying clothes from me, and I was like, oh, wow. But I knew the clothes weren't perfect. I didn't know why they were buying it. They don't get taste, because the clothes were badly made. The designs were cool, but pretty much all of them bought 2,500 naira shirt or the other. And 2,500 naira back then was a lot of money, because everything was cheap. So yeah, I was extra semester guy, but I was now making money. I mean, every day somebody was buying something. Every day somebody was buying something, and I was making more and more and more clothes. And it was a good time, really, because for the first time ever, I had money that technically I didn't have to work for, because cutting the clothes and sewing them, I'll do it overnight, then wear it to school the next day and somebody else will buy it. I remember I went for one award show. I think it was, I can't remember, Law Awards or something. All of my friends, they were like 10 or 11 then. Everybody bought what they were wearing from me. Yes, I think it was Lord Dina. They had one white shirt, patch shirt, everybody. In fact, even girls. I think Damilola bought, Stockboy bought. So I became a baller. Everybody left to go and do NYC. They got a job. They were still buying clothes from me. I would say Olumide kickstarted Oluwafemi clothing. Yeah, if I'm being honest, let's give credit where credit is due. Pretty much that's how we started. But sometimes you gotta look out for him. It's your brother though.
Don't worry. Lagos Island and selling on the road.
Lagos Island and selling on the road. So for the longest time, I pretty much made everything I was selling. And after a while, I realized that the volume of orders I was getting, I couldn't keep up, like, because I normally would sew the clothes at night. But now, my days were busy, my nights were busy, and I couldn't keep up. So, I can't remember how that happened, but somehow, I found my way to Lagos Island, or somebody gave me a number. I went to Lagos Island, I bought fabric. I bought fabric on Taiwo Street, or was it John Street? And to my surprise, right on the next street, Taiwo Street, the street was filled with tailors, left, right, center, from the very beginning to the end. And these guys were making, if I'm going to be honest, well-made clothes. Like, the shirts were neat, the pants were neat. They looked like stuff that were imported. And I was very surprised. So I went back to John Street. I bought fabric. Then I went to Taiwo Street. I walked into one guy's shop, Muri. I mean, I called him Muri Bespoke later, but it was just Muri. So I walked into Muri's shop and I told him, oh, I want you to make a shirt for me. Basically, the way it worked back then was you bring your fabric, they call it material, give it to them, you pay the guy, he will make the shirt, you come back to get it. Drop the fabric on his table and he said 500. It was going to be ready in 1 week. I went back the next week and the shirt was perfectly made. Like, even at my best, I couldn't come close to what this guy gave me for 500 bucks. And I was like, okay, why stress myself to make the clothes when I can pay somebody 500 bucks and he'll get it done neatly? So basically, that was like the kick starting of the business. And from then, I would go to Lagos Island, buy fabric, give it to tailors. And it was now easier because Tokwe had the car. I was living in Agbara Estate. She was living in Iba Estate, which was behind Lasso. So I'll take a bus to our house, we'll get into our car, we'll buy petrol. Yes, 500 bucks to fill our tank, if I remember properly. So I'll charge my customers between 2.5 and 3K. I would buy the fabric for 400 bucks a yard. 2 yards was 800 bucks. Tailor was charging me 500. So the cost of production to me then was maybe like 1,300. And I was fling the shirt for 3K or 2.5. I was balling. And I kept doing that. And all of my friends that were buying clothes from me from school, they now got in jobs. So they now even had access to more money. And pretty much that was all what we were doing. We just, oh yes, I remember I used to have a problem with female customers because I just couldn't get it. Like, either the clothes were either too big or too tight or too, like, it just wasn't working. But all the time, Dogba was right beside me because we're always riding in that car. Sometimes I would ask her for advice. Like, what do you think? What do you think? And she'll tell me, oh, why don't you do it like this? Why don't you do it like this? And actually, her advice used to work, make her no lie. One day, she just told me, I said, you know what? You can't do this thing. Why don't you let me do it? So, and I looked at her, I'm like, do you know anything about fashion? Because you're following me up and down, you're entering market, you feel say you sabi this thing. And she was like, no, I can do it. I don't mind doing this. I really want to do this, blah, blah, blah. Me already, the female line was giving me problems. So I was like, you know what? Take. Oh yeah, do it if easy. And the first thing she did was she went to Lagos Island, she bought fabric, she made about 5 shirts for herself. And I was like, okay, I think we'll have something here. Like, say this girl, if we do this one. So I was like, you know what? Let's do like a partnership, but it will be Oluwafemi. I will be Oluwafemi man. You will be Oluwafemi woman. She was like, no problem, and that's what we did. That's why we used to make all the clothes that we were selling back then. We had 2 tailors.
Oh, that's why we used to have the sewing machine.
Yep. Because the 2 sewing machines that were, yes, the 2 sewing machines that we had from the house was from this shop.
So why didn't you guys bring it?
Because we stopped making clothes in Nigeria.
But I want to know how to sew.
I can teach you, that was not hard. And I used to live in this place, in this workshop.
Okay.
Yep, I had a small cotton table there that I used to sleep on, and I would wake up in the morning. Nobody knew I was living there though. I would wake up in the morning around maybe like 5:30. Then I would quickly have my bath here. There was a this tiny small space here like this. I'd have my bath here. Then I would go out all the way to the estate gates, then walk back in as if I was just coming, so that people will know that I slept here. And I used to sleep here for, I think, like months, about 7 or 8 months before I moved to Timothy's house. Timothy is, what's it called? He thinks that, yeah.
Oh, I've not seen that one in like past 3 years or so.